7 o'clock. I'd like to call the Planning Commission for the City of Hudson to order for Thursday, December 4th. First order of business is item 4 on the agenda has been withdrawn tonight, so that if you're here to discuss or talk about the final development plans at 720 First Street, that's not on the agenda tonight, so FYI. First item of business is discussion possible action of November 20th, 2014 meeting minutes, excuse me. Any changes or additions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion possible action on final development plans for a 7,100 square foot auto parts retail store at 2355 Badger Drive, AutoZone Inc. Mr. Darnold?
The proposed AutoZone retail store is proposed in the former Hudson Visitor Center site. This is Gateway Boulevard, so Taco Bell is located right here. The store would be immediately north of that. This is Badger Drive, the new 3 Street that goes through the former Visitor Center. Concept's the same, and just very minor changes from the concept as approved. Driveway's been widened a little bit, which will help facilitate truck maneuvering in now without having to maneuver on the site. There's just one unresolved issue is the water main. It's very minor. There's 2 water services that were developed as part of the Hudson Center development. This development would be using one of them, so it'd be a abandonment agreement required for the second service. They've already agreed to that with the water utility, and now be a condition of approval. Again, as far as the way the building looks, it's a typical AutoZone building. Mr. Brandon Elligert's here tonight to answer any questions. He's a project engineer. Other than that, the zoning complies as far as setbacks, landscape requirements, and so forth. Recommend approval of the final development plans for the AutoZone Center at it's 2355 Badger Drive, with the condition that the plans be amended to show the utilization of the one water service, and then secondly that the abandonment agreement be signed and executed prior to the development plans being approved.
Okay.
Brandon, you have any comments you like?
My name is Brandon Elliger. I'm with Kinley Horn and Associates. We're the civil engineering consultant on the project. And again, Denny, thank you, and thank everyone for their time. And really just here to answer any questions. And so if any of you folks have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes.
I do have one. I know the store's AutoZone has certain colors that is their flagship or what they do. And my question is what is the coordination with the other buildings that are going in this area? Will this be a non-fit on a color scheme basis compared to everything else that's going in there? Has there been some effort on coordination of having everything go together? Am I saying this poorly? But I think it would look nice if it was if it was coordinated and all together. And I can't say I know everything because we have 2 buildings up there now that I just think for them all to complement each other would be very nice.
Sure. As it stands right now, AutoZone's planning to have a prototypical 7,100 square foot building. So it's the gray block, orange and white paint to kind of give it their branding that they're used to having. And that's the plan as of right now.
Okay.
Yes.
My question was going to be along that same train of thought, and that was as a development, and with that being in such a prominent spot and setting a tone to the development, it really has a very one-sided, if you will. It has a front, and then everything else is back, which is out to the rest of the traffic going by on the east side and everything else, and other approaches. Have they given any thought to having the architecture reflect? You can stay with your same colors and signage and everything else, but more 3-dimensional around the whole building and what it looks like, rather than just the front on the corner.
Sure, and if I could, point to some of the architectural elevations that the windows that you see along this side are on this easterly portion of the building, so that way as folks are driving up and entering the site, they see the full glass and kind of complement to the other pieces, and then with their signage along that longer face of the building with some glass as well, so.
I'm talking about the other side of the building.
From the freeway?
North side.
Yeah. That we're not looking at just this, you know, they did a very nice job on the across the street with how they treated the backs of the building as that faces County Market, to break up the architecture such that it blended better with everything else going on and just wasn't a big flat wall.
Sure.
And that's all I'm saying, is it would be a nice opportunity to make a better looking building for everybody, and it's also part of our entry to our community. That if it was, and you'd get better signage of all those people going by, I believe,
Sure.
than a big sign up into the sky.
Well, and this site will actually not have a pylon sign, it's gonna be on a.
But my point is that it'll be attractive to the eye. People will look at it and it'd be appealing, as opposed to, we all would win, is my only concern there.
Okay, well, we can certainly bring that to AutoZone and see if that'd be something that they're interested in.
Yeah. I wouldn't deny you going in for it, that's not my role, you know, but as
Well, we can
as somebody
certainly
on the
questions.
planning commission, that would, I think we would all win by the back elevation also being architecturally treated like the front, instead of just a big.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Is there a motion to approve or deny?
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's with the conditions I stipulated on the.
Yes.
With Denny.
With Denny's.
Okay. Item 5, discussion and possible action of application by Hanson Brothers LLC for rezoning 201 Carmichael Road, being part of the golf course west of Carmichael Road, north of Cooley Road,
Yes, we can.
from R1 resident, one family residential to PRD planned residential district, from R1, one family residential district to B2 general business district, which is the area of the maintenance shed, and amend the City of Hudson's 2009 comprehensive plan from recreational commercial to single and two-family residential, medium-density residential, and general commercial land use designations. Mr. Darnold.
The comprehensive plan, golf course has been designated as commercial recreational or golf course considerations. That includes both the clubhouse area and the entire golf course area and the maintenance sheds. What's being requested is for about a 2.7 acre. This is for the comprehensive plan amendment. Going to a general business classification where the maintenance sheds are at, to allow commercial to be similar as land use classification as the commercial frontage on Cooley Road and also Plaza 94. And then also this be extended to be general business. And then where the senior housing may go if a conditional use permit would be granted, change that. The rest of it would be 1 and 2 family, because through the planned residential development. Is there any specific questions on, yes?
Can I just, what did, we've discussed this before, and did we not break out some part of it into like 3 separate lots?
That would be the
So can you just
Carmichael
point
Road,
that out to me?
Yeah,
which
this
those-
area.
right here. This is to amend the comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
correct, Danny?
Yeah, but what,
Right, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that.
what she's referring to, the clubhouse is right here. We had lot, so there are 3 lots that were
that we changed that,
Correct.
okay,
And there's-
thank you.
Yeah, the zoning act, the actual zoning on that is B2 general commercial.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the comprehensive plan? From the zoning standpoint, the current zoning for all the frontage on Carmichael Road and Cooley Road is commercial. These are what's called a planned commercial development, but everything's B2, general business or the planned commercial development. The area of the golf course in this is R1, one family residential, and a golf course is permitted through a conditional use permit on the R1 zoning classification. When the Stone Pine came in before the golf courses actually was expanded, this is zoned to a PRD, a planned residential development, and so this part of the golf course is under a PRD, but what the request for zoning only includes this area, and then would include the maintenance shed area for the 2.7 acres that would go to a general business zoning classification. Any questions on that?
Where are the 2.7 acres on that map?
Right here.
Where the maintenance sheds are?
Okay.
Right next to Mueller's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right east.
So,
Yeah.
so this is Plaza 94 here.
Okay.
Any particular questions or issues you want to discuss? Again, just for clarification, a rezoning would not remove the private restrictions that were placed as an agreement between the seller, the golf course association, and Hanson Brothers. That restriction would not come off just because the property is rezoned. So I just want to clarify that. If the Hanson Brothers want to come forward to Common Council again at some time and request that, that's their prerogative, but that's not for consideration tonight. I just want to make a clarification. But I think what the city's come to is, what's going to happen to that property? Is it going to be reused as a golf course? If not, then what may be some of the potential uses for the property? The Hanson Brothers probably, and I think I'm safe that Hunsagan Homes probably has a tentative purchase agreement to purchase the property or part of the property if the property be rezoned and the private restrictions be taken off the property. But if the restrictions remain in place until 2020, March 31st of 2020, the property remains pretty much idle until that point, other than a few areas that would be commercial development. So realistically, you're looking at a development taking 5 to 7 years to build out. From the time that it'd be rezoned and the development process would start, even the property taxation is a year behind. So realistically, even if you started the process today of potential development, you probably wouldn't see the full tax benefits of that development until 2022, 2023 potentially. It just takes that long to get that when you have a phased development. If you wait till 2020 to start that, you're looking at, the tax benefits being delayed until potentially 2030 or beyond. And I'm not saying that, I just don't know if some of the government officials in Hudson realize that's a potential, that time period. So I'm just trying to mention that to make sure that there would be, again, the zoning is R1, one family residential. If the restrictive covenants would be taken off, a plat that would be in conformance with the R1, one family would be permitted. It could move ahead, but as long as the restrictive covenants are in place, I'd be very cautious of the city moving in that direction. The zoning to the PRD would allow predominantly one family residential. What they're proposing is
predominantly one-family residential with some senior housing, but the senior housing is only about 1/8 of the site. So the predominant planned use is one family. It's just the type of one, how's the one family structure designed, placed on property and so forth. So the density may not be significantly different between R1 and the PRD except for the senior housing aspect of it. There we have potentially much denser, because you'd probably be in the 10 to 12 units per acre range, where at the one family, you're going to be probably between 3.5 to 4 units per acre. But the site, because of the topography of the site, because of grade restrictions, you cannot grade on slopes greater than 20% due to sewer service area plans. That's a DNR requirement. You have certain restrictions. So the site is sensitive. I think whoever would develop the site in the future is going to have to be sensitive to those. The city's going to have to be very careful on how design is done. Stormwater is going to be a critical issue for that area. So regardless of the zoning, a final plan where it's R1 one family residential, or where it's PRD, a planned residential development, is going to have to be looked at very carefully for that area if it's going to move ahead in regards to development.
Okay. John, got a question for you if you want to. Okay. At least I have one. Okay. City Park on your, and I understand this is rough. I mean, this isn't a final. What kind of restrictive covenant is there with that land? And can anything ever be built on that for what, 40 years, 35 years?
Yeah, there's, on the north part of that property was land that actually Hans had sold to the golf course back at about the time Stone Pine was done, I believe. And there was a covenant put on there that said if it wasn't, that basically required it to be a golf course, if the use of that property changes, then it has to be used in a way that's consistent with the Stone Pine PUD. Not sure I
What does that
understand
mean?
what that means. I don't know if maybe Hans has some recollection of what that was intended to mean. I think at the time Stone Pine was done, there was obviously some steep slopes there, so to access it from Stone Pine and put roads in there probably wasn't possible. And with the golf course, it being on the south side of it, I don't think anybody really envisioned it being developed at that time because you had a golf course use and steep slopes. So how do you get there? And it was just to be kind of open space.
Yep.
But it wasn't specifically stated as that. It was simply to make sure that what happened there would someday be consistent with the Stone Pine BUD and not something, I
Well,
guess.
it puts a real limit on what the use of that, and I think I asked the question last time, how do the residents, if this is a park, how would they even get there? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm quite familiar with the topography
Yeah.
there, and I don't know if you guys have, I know it says city park, but if you can't get to it, it's not a city park.
Yeah. Could I put this up?
Sure, absolutely, that's,
I think the issue that came up last time was the vehicular access, but in terms of pedestrian access, we had envisioned some trail
Yep, I have no problem
connections
with that.
through that, and then perhaps if the city was open to it, trail connection through that. In terms of vehicular access, whether something could be done here, over on this parcel somewhere, or potentially off one of the cul-de-sacs here. We're trying to preserve the big bluff here, so it's how you get down there, but in where that would happen and how that would happen, I think is kind of a function of where, what would be the use of that park property? Is this more passive, open space trails, or is it something the city would potentially like to look at as for something more active?
we've
We're
got a
not-
park board president here, and so he may be asking those
Yeah.
questions. I know that they're gonna have it on the park board.
Yeah, it'll be on our next agenda for the park
Yeah,
board to.
and we don't have any preconceived ideas for that, other than we'd like to see it left as kind of natural as we can. We don't envision it as athletic fields or ball fields or something like that. It's probably left in more passive uses. But that's ultimately would be a decision of the city. It would be dedicated as city parkland, so however the city and the park commission, whatever uses they thought were appropriate, we'd certainly work with them to accommodate those.
Just dumb question, is that land unusable or unbuildable due to slopes and things like that as the park property? Is that one of the reasons why you're designating it as such, because you can't build on it anyway?
Well, eventually, that covenant runs out, that was placed on the Stone Pine. I think it was a 20-year covenant, is that correct, Hans? I don't have it here in front of
It's
me,
only
but,
20, I thought it was 40.
was it 40?
I think it was.
Maybe,
If it's 20, it's 20, but I read somewhere, when
it's
I
more
looked.
than the golf one that was put on.
Yeah.
And it
So there
could-
may be 30 left?
Yeah, correct. Yep. But it would be accessible from this coming through here, if someday it was
Where?
buildable. You could certainly come through here with
Really
it.
steep, though.
Yeah, because we've looked at that, it's doable. We haven't spent a lot of time on it
Yeah.
because it's not something we have any desire to do. Again, we see it as a neighborhood feature, as you know, from our other projects, Stone Pine included, and Red Cedar Canyon. We incorporate open space, we like the trail amenities, and that's part of what we do as a neighborhood. So that's obviously because of because of its location, its access, it just made perfect sense to have it as open space.
And maybe we should take city park off and just put park space or open space. 'Cause I don't envision that as a city park.
Yeah, I think what we were looking at, and again, we're not gonna, in terms of the use of it and who owns it is really a city decision, but we looked at, in terms of, from a neighborhood perspective and what we feel residents would look for. They like the linear park systems where they can go on a trail system and walk, not necessarily along a road, a busy road or on a road or, adjacent to something like that. But when you can get off and have this feeling of being in a long linear open space area through the community is really a unique feature. So that's kind of where we saw the value and how people would perceive it, whether it's new residents here or perhaps residents in Stone Pine or other areas. It really starts to tie together some critical pieces here in your community where you've got some now large kind of linear park systems, so.
Pat, you were gonna,
The only question I have is Denny, do we know, or can you find out for us if at the time that Hans did Stone Pine, and we did the deal with the golf course taking over that property for the course, was there credit to Hans in lieu of impact fees for any set amount with that taking place and accruing as green space back to them? Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand your question. I'd have to research it.
Yeah. I don't remember, Hans, if it did, and if that was part of why the attachment for the period of time was important or not.
My recollection's been a long time.
Good.
My recollection is that.
Did you go to the
golf
microphone,
course
sir?
came to us.
Hans, you have to go to the lectern, please.
Hans Hagen. It's my recollection the golf course came to us because they were selling some property, needed to expand to the north. And this property was not part of the PRD at that point. We owned it as a developer, and we were going to leave that for open space. So when the golf course came to us, we said, sure, we'll do that. And we simply gave my recollection is we gave it to them, or it was a $1,000 bill or something like that, a nominal price. And we put a covenant on it because we had talked to the people and said, okay, there's open space down here. So when we transferred to the golf course, it was our interest in protecting the homeowners at that time to say it's going to either be a golf course or open space, and that's why we put the covenant on. And I don't recall if the covenant was 20 or 40 years, but I think you're correct, Mayor. I think it was a 40-year covenant.
And my recollection is I was doing the golf course deal with you at that time on their side, and that was pretty accurate to what I remember it being as well.
Okay.
I just didn't know if there was an offset that the city had given in lieu of X number of dollars of impact fees towards it or not, and I just don't remember.
I think it was
don't know
kind
that
of-
we were even party of it.
We'll go back and check our numbers, but as I recall, it was sort of the end of the development, and there wasn't good access there, and so it was just our interest to preserve that space as open space, and that we were not compensated. If we would have negotiated at the front end of the process with the city in terms of some credit, we could have gotten at the front end, but I don't recall that there was any credit beyond that.
Maybe,
But there,
maybe true.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I don't mean it accusatorily, that,
Oh.
I don't know if we.
Questions? Anyone else? Mary Claire?
So I think, I mean, we don't know what the economic situation is going to be 5 years from now, right? I mean,
Correct.
so I think it sounds like it hasn't been marketed for a golf course. Mayor, you had said last week that the greens and someone would have to come in and redevelop the whole thing if they wanted to make it another golf course, correct?
Would seem that way,
Okay. It's-
based on the condition that I've seen.
That you've seen, right?
Yep.
It does not appear to be an ideal location for commercial, correct? I think we talked about that last time, right? I mean, there is that space that, is for that. I think we need to help the Common Council move forward with a plan that might work, based on, some of Denny's comments about how many years. If we wait another 5 years, we don't know what that's gonna look like. But I think, all of, myself included, would say I'm disappointed that it's not a golf course and that it can't stay as a golf course. But we need to move forward and come up with a plan that's gonna work for the city and for the residents. And I think we need to help the Common Council move forward, even though we're unhappy, but we need to look in the best interests of this community. And if this is the plan to move forward with, then I think we need to help make that happen.
Okay. Yes.
Go ahead, Frank.
Frank?
Danny, do you know what have you been able to, can you give us some idea of what the tax consequences would be of developing this?
He just happens to have that.
Good.
Well, from a conservative standpoint, the current assessment on the parcel is, including the clubhouse, restaurant, event center, is about a little less than $5 million. If you add, I'm only taking the one-family units, if you had 221 one-family units at $225,000, that's a little less than $50 million. So.
Valuation, no, that's.
Full valuation, again, this is a phased development, that doesn't occur 1 year, it's 7 or 8 years before that's fully in place, but that is potential for the residential. Again, I'm not adding in the 2.7 acres of commercial development, nor am I adding in the area that may be developed north of the clubhouse, nor the senior housing. Now, you may be looking at another 10 million approximately for that development. So you could be in the range of $50 to $60 million valuation based on $17 per thousand of value. That would bring approximately, and the city gets 25% of the tax collection approximately, so it'd be about $200,000, a little less than $200,000 a year. That, again, after it's fully improved, fully accessible and so forth.
I believe they're paying, what, 88,000 right now?
Probably in that range, yeah.
Yes, sir.
The issue I wanted to bring up is that, and we talked a little bit about this last time, but what would be happening if we were to proceed with this, as we're talking here, is that forces the city of Hudson to do something sooner than they had anticipated or planned with our water sewage treatment plant. So in other words, approving this development is we're using up all our capacity and we gotta do something. Gotta start 3 years in advance to have it in place for when we need it. I don't wanna see the community get hit twice. We lose an amenity, and then by selling the property, we then have to pay, or everybody else has to pay to update the water treatment plant. I guess what I mean, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm thinking that somehow or other we have to tie some of that maybe to this development or something, because our capacity is technically used up all at once. Any other development has to come in under increased capacity, increased cost to the city of Hudson to get their water treatment facility to be able to handle and process more. That would be a concern I have, is that it's forcing the city to accelerate our direction in that to increase the capacity of the water treatment plant.
Okay.
So we need to think of that.
Just to clarify a couple of issues on that. I've cautioned the Common Council for 5 or 6 years that
every annexation, every development, we have to continue to analyze what the capacity, demand capacity of the wastewater treatment plant is. I commented with 221 homes, that potentially the 60,000 gallons per day of unused capacity might be used up. Now again, with more conservation-oriented water fixtures, perhaps that's not going to be as high a demand as what we may think it is. But regardless, it starts. So, but you've also got other developments such as the dog track. I mean, that has the former dog track. That has been signed a fairly significant amount of wastewater treatment plant capacity. If that's not fully used, some of that will end up being allocated throughout the community. Again, a development like this takes 3 to 7 years, potentially. I mean, they told us 7 years last time. I'd probably correct myself, not 3 to 7, but 5 to 7 years potentially for development. So incrementally, you're only adding on so much demand per year. It's not like it's all coming on 60,000 gallons in the first year. Another question from the financial consequence of expanding the wastewater treatment plant. I believe we have $5 or $6 million in the fund right now to expand that plant. We've been collecting those funds for a number of years. The only reason we haven't expanded it is because every year that we can wait without expanding it, we're buying, so to speak, technology, that we can get more capacity in our system with the technology to be available to the city. So that's the reason we haven't proceeded in part with an expansion. But if the zoning go through, we consider conditional use permit for a planned residential development. Part of the negotiations would be is, how soon may that potential capacity demand and decision by the Common Council have to be made to make that expansion. But, I would still be cautious. We can't put that issue underneath a rug. We got to keep it open. We may have to make that determination pretty soon. But again, a development like this would potentially add $320,000 to go in towards the wastewater treatment plant, also from sewer connections. So, I mean, they're not going to be getting off scot-free on an expansion. They're going to be paying their fair share, just like everybody else is paid. But we have a very significant amount of money set aside to do that expansion now. It's not like the city's going to have to go out and borrow a significant amount of money to do that project, in my opinion. So actually, we're in pretty good shape financially to do it once we feel the timing is proper to do the project.
I was not aware of that.
Yep. Pat was next.
Well, I agree with a lot of what Mary Claire said, in that all those issues are going to need to be addressed at a later stage of the game, if you will. But right now, Hans has done a good job with every project he's done here in Hudson in the past, and they've looked very nice, and he's been very good to work with the city in the past to do those things. They may be hurdles that go up that would keep him from going forward with the project, but this is the very first step to whether or not they continue to spend significant amount of money going forward, that I think we should change the zoning so at least that can move forward and start taking place, and then let the restrictions and the fees and all that shake out the way it does. That'll be a business decision that he or anyone else coming along is going to have to face as just it goes with the ground. But at least they know at the very beginnings it's worth spending the time and effort to investigate it.
Okay. Mary Claire?
I just have one question. Through your market research, are you feeling confident that you would be able to fill these lots and fill these spots in a reasonable amount of time in the upcoming years? I mean, based on the market research that you've already done of this area?
Maybe we're just bulls all the time in terms of our looking forward, but I think last year we sold 41 or 42 houses in Red Cedar Canyon. I think we went back 3 years prior to that, and it was less than half of that.
Okay.
Interest rates are low, it's very attractive, but probably the biggest issue is the demographic change. So that what we're seeing is the change is that we're seeing people in larger single-family homes that say, I don't need all that space, and we need room for the young people to come up. Frequently, they can't afford new construction because it costs somewhat more than used. So there is a natural evolution of going from used to new, and it's kind of the reverse, where we had the baby boomers coming up and all moving up. Now what we're doing is getting them to move down. Frequently, they'll own 2 houses, and then the used house will go back to the young family. So we are confident that we will do it. There will be cycles in there.
Yes, agreed.
But I would say that it would reasonably average at probably 30, 35. There'll be some above 40 and some below 30, probably.
Okay, thank you.
So folks, what we're doing tonight is we're talking about zoning. We're not, the agreement or the, what's it called, the.
Covenant?
Covenants are
Covenant
still
on the
in
thing
play.
is an issue that it's not for the planning commission to deal with.
Yep.
It's for the city council to deal with, and where we go with that is, we've been presented a plan here, a preliminary plan.
Serves as an illustration of what.
Yeah, what could be there. I mean, this isn't put in concrete, and so that's the decision I think we have, and if there's questions, yay or nay, unless you have more questions.
I did provide a letter that I received by email from Miss Catherine Van Schoonhoven, who advocating retaining R11 family residential zoning, and I provided a copy of that letter to you.
And we're also having a public hearing on the 15th for the public to come and talk about it. And what we're doing, either we're recommending or saying we don't think it's a good deal, is what our planning commission is trying to do tonight. So what's your pleasure, unless you have more questions or comments?
I mean, I don't know if there's somebody from the public
Does
here
anybody
tonight
here
that might
wanna-
want to comment, or?
Yep, I guess that's fair too. Is there anyone here that'd like to comment on what's going on tonight?
Do you want a motion at this time, or do
Sure.
you want to wait? I'll move that we approve the zoning change.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Other business for informational purposes or for upcoming agendas. Denny?
Next tentatively scheduled Plan Commission meetings on Thursday night, January 8th. We would not have a second Plan Commission meeting in December during a regular time slot. It just gets too close to Christmas. Now, the item number 4, discussion possible action on final development plan, 720 First Street Lofts. I took that off the agenda because there was some new information that was presented today. I just didn't feel comfortable moving ahead tonight. They will still like to try to keep on the December 15 meeting. I don't know if the Plan Commission could possibly meet next early morning meeting next week or not. If you can't, we delay it till January 8th, but I'll send out an email, see if that's a possibility tomorrow. If not, then we look at it possibly being on the agenda for that Thursday, January 8th meeting. Last but not least, I want to thank you for your service this year, and as always, you did a great job, and we appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you, Denny. You do a fabulous job in getting us prepared and all the background information. Greatly appreciate all that you do.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.